So about 3 years ago, just when I was starting to really feel the benefit of regular yoga and meditation, I lost the consulting gig that was enabling me to be able to afford it. So I'm standing at the front desk of the yoga studio talking to Dennis, the very helpful manager, about putting my account on hold. And the front desk of our yoga studio is in the middle of where people take on and off their shoes, so everyone's kind of up in your business. And I'm talking to Dennis, and he's saying, yeah, it's better to put it on hold because you'll stay in the system, and if there's a free class or some other kind of thing, like you'll find out about it, and you'll stay in the community. And a yogi who just happens to be walking by at this moment says, and yeah, why not put out the positive energy into the universe that maybe your financial situation will take care of itself somehow, right? Err on the side of optimistic thinking. And I'm sitting there, and that's just such a yogic thing to say, right? Like, I just had to sigh, and like it just came out of my mouth involuntarily, like, just when you realize how badly you need it. And my phone rings 2 days later, and it's my favorite yoga teacher, and she's calling to tell me that someone in the yoga community ordered that encounter and wants to sponsor me for yoga. They want to pay for my yoga for the whole summer. And they don't want anything in return. They just want me to know that my community heard me, that I needed them. And I went straight to the shame trifecta of embarrassment, paranoia, and, frustration. Like, I didn't ask for help. And Sherry says to me, no, you didn't ask, but you let the community know that you needed it. And well, that was something. And it took me a little while to wrap my head around it. And it took me a little while to be able to go back to the yoga studio. You see, I thought that everybody would know somehow. And I walked in and people didn't know. And then I started thinking, people should know. This is actually a really amazing community that we are a part of that would do this for a person who they don't really know. And I wanted people to feel what kind of a community it was that we were a part of. So I started actively looking for ways to give to my community, right? Like, I would kind of wait by the door if the class was full. And if somebody came in, like, looking like they needed yoga that day, I would give them my spot. And I started telling people about what had happened, and I started hearing the most amazing stories. I heard one of the guys in the studio, his neighbor had paid for him to go to college because she saw something in him and she wanted to change his life. And that made me start to think about a time in my life where someone saw something in me and was in a position to change my life. This was when I went to Costa Rica. Now, Costa Rica changed my life because it's where I discovered linguistics, which is my calling, my vocation. And the reason I got this was I got a Rotary Fellowship. Now, if any of you know about the Rotarians, they are very community-oriented, right? You don't get this gig unless you're recommended by a Rotarian. And I knew this, right? I had a recommendation from a Rotarian, but I just thought that was one of the boxes I needed to check, right? Like, I was doing this. I applied for the scholarship. I won the application. I nailed the interview. I was best in show, right? I had done this. And I learned at the reception, no, actually, Eugene Friesen, who was the Rotarian that had recommended me, had been the reason I got the scholarship, because he fought for me. And he came over to me that night and told me that I didn't understand what a gift it was to him to be able to recommend someone so wholeheartedly. And he was right. I did not get it because I was 22 and I wanted to win that scholarship by myself. I didn't want to be grateful for my community. But about 2 years later, I couldn't have felt about the situation any more differently. At the end of the scholarship, I actually loved Costa Rica so much I stayed, and I had gotten a job. It was my first job. I was a Spanish teacher. Sorry, English teacher. Reverse. They speak Spanish there, so I was an English teacher. I had this job, right? my first real job. And I lost it after a month and had to move home. In the meantime, my folks had moved from Tucson to rural Texas for my father's job, which was as a pastor, which he then lost. And if any of you have ever known a pastor or been a pastor or a PK, when you lose your job, you also lose your house. So there we were in rural Texas, and I'm trying now to help my parents pay rent. And I have a job as a Spanish teacher, and I supplement my income now, which is minimum wage. I supplement my income working at a restaurant called Mejor Que Nada, and it was not. It was not better than nothing. And I'm spinning my wheels, right? You know when you're in mud and you're spinning those wheels and you're just getting yourself deeper and deeper and deeper. And the phone rings, and it's a woman who was my housemate in Costa Rica. And she's calling to say that one of her housemates in New York had moved out. And I could have a room for $250 a month. This was the 90s. In New York. And it would change my life. And I should come. And I'm looking at the $2 that represent the sum total of my tips the evening before from Mejor Que Nada. And I tell Christine, like, I would love to come to New York, but, like, I just can't. I'm sorry. And she called a few hours later, and her dad had decided that he wanted to give me a ticket to New York because he knew it would change my life. And it did. And he gave me a round-trip ticket, and I only used one leg. And that was 20 years ago, and I haven't left the East Coast since. And in the house share, I met someone who helped me get a job at Goldman Sachs who paid for a master's degree in linguistics. And I'm lucky. I get to do exactly what I love. And a few years ago, I decided how it was that I was going to give back to my community. See, I have mastered a particular knack over the years. I have mastered the knack of making somebody hire linguists. So I'm writing a book for linguists called Bringing Linguistics to Work, helping them do what I have learned how to do. Because we have actually a really tremendously amazing community, we linguists, and I want the linguists to feel that. But about a year ago, after I'd been working on the book 3 years and lost 3 different publishers, I realized that stuck in the mud kind of a feeling again. And this time I realized that I could ask for help rather than waiting for somebody to know that I needed it. And I did a crowdsourcing campaign, and the shame trifecta was right there waiting for me. Humiliation, embarrassment, and fear, right? Was the community gonna hear me? And not only did they fund me to be able to hire an editor and pay for a publisher and go to such exotic locations as New Jersey, but this morning I paid the last payment to my editor. On Tuesday, I am sending the manuscript off to the publisher, and I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you.